knowing that your government has just killed several hundred women and children in the past 24 hours and is going to do it in the next 24 hours. And what can you do to try to stop it? My friend Al Latkowski and his friend Clyde McKay felt just the way that I think everybody in this room is probably feeling these days back in the early 70s. And I wrote this song about what they did. Gather round, I'll tell a story about a man I know, what he did across the ocean half a century ago. Death was raining from the skies all over Vietnam. Al and Clyde decided they had to try to stop the bombs. These two young men signed up to join the merchant marine, horrified by what they heard along with what they'd seen. They began to have discussions, they found a common goal. They joined the crew of the Columbia Eagle and then they'd take control. The ship was full of napalm, heading across the sea to be loaded on the planes and be dropped upon the country to burn the skin off people beneath it at the time. They vowed to break the law to prevent a greater crime. They thought they'd spend their lives in prison, or more likely they would die. But Clyde and Al agreed that at least they had to try to sail to Cambodia with all the napalm as well, where it might remain forever, the bombs that never fell. They carried out their plan, and they didn't slip, just two guns between them, but soon they ran the ship. They brought it to neutral waters by seeing Nookville, that these bombs might never be sent to maim and kill. But that's not how it ended. The next thing that we knew, Sihanouk was overthrown, there was a military coup. Clyde McKay died in the jungle, and with so many of his peers, in a California prison, Al Latkowski spent 8 years. The ship was not off course by much more than a bit. The future of the Folly, perhaps they didn't change it. But while the blood was flowing and most people spent their days maybe marching in the streets or just joining the rat race, there are those among us who can say they really tried, who did everything they possibly could to stop the fratricide. If you see a big white beard on the Central Eastern shore, he might be a mutineer who tried to stop the war. Gather round, I'll tell a story about a man I know, what he did across the ocean half a century ago. Did you ever notice that no matter who wins the wars, American industry always makes lots of money off of it? What was that song called? I have them in alphabetical order, but then I have to remember the alphabet and remember the title, even if I don't have to remember all the lyrics. Okay, there it is. Tanks were rolling into Ukraine, the globe was horrified. There were calls for negotiations to heal this divide. Others called for sending missiles, armored trucks and fighter planes, and for sanctioning the Russians to block their shipping lanes. As the slaughter went on, it did not take long at all for the war and the sanctions first victims to fall as the price of food skyrocketed. No fertilizer for the soil and a doubling price of oil. But fear not, world, as long as you can pay. You can buy all the things you need from the USA. We've got these purple fields of green, growing lots of corn and wheat as long as we get rain in the commodity markets. Prices have quintupled, good time to tighten our belts, get extra fit and supple. Don't know about that pipeline, who made it explode, but now that you've lost your main source from where the gas once flowed for 5 times the price, we've got all of it you need and a whole lot of corporate greed. But fear not, world, as long as you can pay. You can buy all the things you need from the USA. We've got your weapons too, in case you hear your neighbors, or the Russians or the Chinese start rattling their cedars. You might as well be ready for when that time arrives. You'll want to stock your Air Force up with these F-35s. And if your country gets destroyed in the process of resistance, as you're picking up the broken pieces, if you need assistance, we can sell you steel, glass, lumber, and concrete in victory or defeat. Yes, fear not, world, as long as you can pay. You can buy all the things you need from the USA. Fear not, world, as long as you can pay. You can buy all the things you need from the USA. On the 25th of February, 2024, in protest against a US-sponsored genocidal war, as bombs were falling and exploding all around, burning up the bodies of the children on the ground, huddling in tents and just waiting to die. This young man could no longer stand to hear the cries. On International Drive in Washington, D.C., a young airman walked up to the Israeli embassy as mothers buried babies who had no milk within, as white phosphorus munitions burned off the people's skin, as the troops were firing on those trying to find bread, as the body count was building up to 30,000 dead. Dressed in his fatigues there on Embassy Row, he announced into the camera this was where he'd meant to go, an act of desperation and one designed to share the horrors of the crimes being committed over there, like a mirror to the world, so no one could look away from what's happening in Gaza every minute of each day. He stood in front of the building, as ready as he'd get. He put his phone down so he could live stream it on the net. When he lit the fire on the day he chose to die, with no way to stop the slaughter, at least he had to try. As the flames rose up, yellow, red, and blue, did he look up at the cross and wonder what would Jesus do? The Secret Service came to point a gun at Aaron's face. The airman didn't move, he just stood in place. He'd come to make a spectacle, that was understood. If he couldn't stop the war, he'd do what he could. As his body burned before us in an unmistakable sign, again and again he shouted out, "Free Palestine!" On the 25th of February, 2024, I have a clock in front of me. I was thinking, when is it going to be 20 minutes that I should hand this guitar over? But we're not there yet, so I'm going to do another song. And this one has a lower death count, I suppose, or maybe I'm not sure about that actually. I was one of the really, where I live in Portland, Oregon, and it's very similar in most of the country. My rent has almost tripled in 17 years. It's just like, and wages have not been increasing like that. Certainly mine haven't. They've only been decreasing. I made more money in my 30s than I've ever made, since, and I ever hoped to make, because college gigs used to exist. But it's just so many cities all over the country are being completely reshaped by this madness. 1 out of 9 households evicted every year. So many terribly traumatized people. They get evicted, they die young. There's a direct correlation, and I've lived in so many cities that had looked absolutely nothing like they looked. They looked nothing like they looked when I lived there, and usually I left because I was priced out of Boston, San Francisco, Seattle. Now I'm living in Portland. But I don't on purpose go to all the hippest cities. It's not what I'm trying to do. I just end up in them because I'm just so hip. I just can't help it. But it was so striking to read about the Highland clearances in Scotland, because people are under the impression there was some kind of a battle or some kind of the English came and kicked them all out. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was so much more insidious than that. It's just nothing different than what's happening here now. Once upon a century, people lived above this glen. There were 50 houses here with parents and their children. But someone said they owned what those for generations had called their homes across the Scottish nation. Allotments kept on shrinking while the rent would only rise. One by one the broken crofters left the open skies, the frozen shores of Nova Scotia in a far-off colony, or somewhere else across the sea. Once upon a century, from the ways of old, from something like the golden rule to the rule of gold, it's just the logic of the market. Supply and demand says to drive the people from the land. Instead of eerie silence reverberating all around among the gardeners and shepherds, you would hear the sound of the pipes and drums and choirs, of the songs that would be sung, and the stories that were told in the Gaelic tongue. Once upon a century, you'd never think it could to turn into a field what had been a neighborhood. Once there were the promises of loyalty or clan, and then there was just profit if you can. If we travel back to a different time and space, it was possible for most to afford to live someplace, but it's the logic of the market, each investor's conviction. More money is just grounds for an eviction. Once upon a century, they cleared the highlands for the sheep. Most folks did not resist as the rent became too steep. They packed their things and moved, scattered far and near. You'd never know that they once were here. Just for the whims of capital, the biggest profits for the banks. You fight a war for empire, and clearance is your thanks. From the crofts of Scotland to the sidewalks of LA, if anything has changed, who can say? Once upon a century, people lived above this glen. There were 50 houses here with parents and their children. We're splitting this night up into 4 sets. So this is Ben's first set, and then I'll do my second set, and then he'll do his second set, just in case anybody needs to know what's happening. If my mother were here, she'd be happy to know. Okay?
David Rovics, everybody. Well, I'm from Greenfield, Massachusetts, and it's about 2 hours west of Boston. And just south of me, about half hour, is Northampton, Massachusetts. And it was about mid-October in Northampton, Massachusetts, when a bunch of us went to the doors of the biggest weapons manufacturer in Western Massachusetts, right there in good old liberal Northampton. It's called L3 Harris. It's the 9th largest weapons manufacturer in the United States. And they are building weapons that are being sent to Israel right now, among other places. And we made that point. We blocked the gates, friends. We put a boat there. It was like an old boat, but it did the trick of obstructing the traffic. And this is a song that was first written by Florence Reese in the 1930s, and reused for many different social justice movements. Come, people of Northampton, there's news we have to tell. This L3 Harris weapons plant is bringing us to hell. Which side are you on? 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 This corporation giant gets rich from weapons sales. Countries turn to chaos as constant war prevails. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Now, which side are you on? They're sending arms to Israel to cause a genocide. It isn't complicated for me to take a side. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Now, which side are you on? Politicians tell us how much they love Ukraine. They keep on sending weapons. It only brings more pain. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? I hear you. Which side are you on? Now, which side are you on? Glaciers, they are melting. Rivers are running dry. We must change our priorities or kiss it all goodbye. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Now, which side are you on? Resist the weapons makers. Don't listen to their lies. This world hasn't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on? Which side are Which side are you on? 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 Thank you. Well, this next song is one that I sometimes need to sing to groups, not like you guys, you sing along great, but you know, there's a need for a revival of transformative musical culture. On the left in particular and in the world in general. And that's kind of what this song is about. You know, it talks a little bit about a TV show. Some of you might have seen it, American Idol. There's a part for you as well in this song. In America and now in many countries on this earth, judges issue televised decrees on what a song is worth. Contestants seek fame, producers seek ratings, but no one sings along. That's the creed of the American idolization of song. Were you waiting for the queen and king of song to be crowned? Were you sedated or too cool to sing when the chorus came around? Has a strange idolatry placed a strain on our voices to train them to cower? 'Cause when we sing with purpose together, the idols lose their power.